All right, we're going to transition to the jazz section now. And to start out, I've got another piano trio debut recording that I'm really excited about. And I just think it's bursting with energy and lots of uniqueness here. And last week we were in the Netherlands. This week we're going to go to Spain with Adrián Royo Trío. This is on Erebal Jazz label and Pangea. And I don't know much about Royo. There's not a lot online about him other than he studied piano performance, jazz studies as well, at Fundació Conservatori Liceo. And that's all I know about him, other than he's got this killer debut recording out here. Along with him on piano, we've got Gonzalo del Val on drums and Manel Fortia on bass. And a really interesting album cover there. And it opens with the title track, Pangea. And so this idea of a one continent kind of thing and things emerging in a developing world comes through this first track. It starts out with a repeating D and C notes kind of thing going on that continues on the piano. There's some ghostly harmonic bass bowing that adds a primeval mystery to the sound. Clicky drums and what might be an udu drum in there get a beat going as the bass switches to short rhythmic bows. Then there's a repeated 8-bar low bowed bass and piano left-hand melody line. Next, an 8-bar transition section with just added syncopated piano chords over the rhythm that continues. It still feels in 4, but another 8 bars with more animated syncopated piano leads into a section with more chiming high note piano chords, ending with some tricky syncopated ending phrases and bass and left-hand piano figures. It sort of resets to the opening rhythm without the piano alternating notes this time. And Fortia is up on bass for a bowed bass solo that bends, pitches, and ends in furious fast bows under trickling piano figures with descending harmonies. A new groove forms over a solid bass ostinato, and Royo works up a piano solo. It has cool changing modal harmonies, but focuses on percussive accented syncopated playing. He works that back into the chiming chords we heard before with some trills added and the same ending lines of bass and piano. Then we go back to the opening alternating notes and a little bit of the bass melody before some final percussion jamming over rhythmic bass bowing and short, maybe kind of muted piano notes to end it. It's an exciting tune and gives you this feeling of a new world developing out of something. I was really captivated from this one. Track 2 is called Palitos, which I think means sticks, as in like claves, percussive clicking sticks. There's a 2-bar drum intro. It brings it into a melody of really fast, snappy right-hand figures on the piano over open 5th chords, starting with the same C and D that we heard in the previous track, Pangea. It seems to be a 24-bar form with a modulated B section and then an extra 4 bars of a transition into a rhythmic change-up to a blazing swing for a solo from Royo over furious walking on the bass by Fortia. It is really energy-packed but smooth runs and rhythmic figures in his right hand and more percussive left-hand chords. He finishes the solo with a great synced line with the bass. Del Val has been keeping up speedy cymbal work, but now he gets a drum solo, working less busy ideas with nice ringing snare and tom work. And they finish up with another run through the melody and that cool figure we heard at the end of the piano solo. Another high-energy tune. Now we're going to get something a little different. Track 3, Bangkok. And I don't know how he's doing this at the beginning of the tune. Maybe it's some type of muting on the piano strings, or he's actually striking the strings. I'm not sure. But it creates
it sounds plucked to me.
Yeah.
Like he's,
I'm thinking more hammered, like a bouncy kind of dulcimer type of effect is achieved. It's like this cool oriental type pentatonic kind of opening section. And the rhythmic effect is kind of like a mallet striking would be doing on an instrument. Well, that goes on for about 45 seconds, and then rhythmic alternating piano chords get a 5/4 groove started. Del Val adds a clicky beat and Fortia a hypnotic bass, and it works into a different feel with more flowing piano lines for a section before going back to the rhythmic piano figures and featuring some cool bass and left-hand piano rising and falling lines. Royo picks up on those line ideas with his right hand to move into a piano solo that has some ascending percussive chords that disguise the meter and morph it into a heavy swing and now 4/4 with 12-bar altered chord blues phrases for soloing. It's a really cool change, and Fortea digs in hard on walking bass. Royo's bursting with ideas in short running phrases and percussive chords with some bluesy ideas too over the changing harmonies. They end up with the ascending chord idea again, leading back into the 5/4 groove from the beginning of the main tune. They go through the flowing section to a pause, and then some final rubato piano and cool rising bass glisses for an ending. So it's a very cool construction and meter switch from 5/4 to 4/4, and you go all the way from that weird Asian atmosphere opening into the blues solo section. So a really interesting combination of sound elements. Track 4 is called Technology. This one starts with an 8-measure piano phrase of a busy triplet figures over left-hand intervals, and the whole idea descends. They repeat it, and Del Valle adds soft brush skittering on the drums. I was feeling it in 4 when I started to hear it, but the next section makes it clear that it's a 6/8 kind of meter. It's an 8-bar section repeated with interval figures worked together in the piano and bass. Next is another repeated 8-bar section, this time with the piano working the rhythmic melody idea and ringing low bass notes below. Fortea comes out of that with a bass solo with great ringing tone, cool hammered on notes, and an unhurried but rhythmic phrasing, including some cool harmonies. He makes it really sing on the bass. And then Del Valle had been sticking to soft textures on the drums under the bass, but it gets subdivided and busy again for a piano solo from Royo. It's rhythmically creative. It works up into great lines of ringing chimes and intense melody built around the theme. He really presses it with a yearning intensity. And they bring it back through the melody section we heard earlier to a sudden emphatic ending on a low F on the piano. Track 5, Halcon. Royo starts this one out on piano with a cool syncopated pattern of 4 chords in 2 measures of a 6-beat rhythm. He goes around that a couple times and then gets joined by bass for a couple rounds and then drums as well. They have a nice groove going and break it up once nicely before continuing on and introducing some piano melody lines that alternate with measures of the groove riff. There's a little more subdued strain of piano into some accented chords, and then the rhythmic rug gets pulled out from under you with a complete stop and some rubato piano and really zipping piano lines from Royo. He gets more delicate and flowing into more zipping and then some soft dissonances. And then the real fun begins here with the fast repeated left-hand rhythmic figure and his right hand taking off on a running journey of its own. It slows down and his hands come together in movement to work into some ringing rhythmic figures to bring back the bass and drums, and that brings back the melody lines. And then some vamping on the riff for Del Valle to do some drum work as it fades out. Man, this is really exciting, high-energy tune here as well. All this is original compositions by Royo, I should add. Track 6, Reencuentro. A solo ringing bass starts it out, and Fortea plays some interesting stuff here, sometimes really hard attacks, intervals together and alternating with cool slides, and he brings it into tempo at the end, up high for the others to join in with a softer ballad melody and an interesting 17-measure length of phrase. Royo takes a round for a solo, ringing relaxed and pretty phrases with lush chords over the deep throbbing and ringing bass underneath, Del Valle on soft brushing. Royo gets to show off a softer side with nice flowing high register lines. They take it through the melody another time with a little tag of piano trickles and percussion chimes. It's very subtle and pretty playing here by Royo. Track 7, Linea 1 or Uno, maybe. Back to the rhythmic business for this tune. It's in a 3-beat feel with a fast syncopated and subdivided bass and piano ostinato figure for the first 8 bars. The bass keeps it going while Royo mixes the piano ideas with chords and then snappy rhythmic right-hand figures for a couple rounds. Then it gets some harmonic movement and lightens up while keeping in tempo. Del Valle drops the driving drumming for cymbal textures and some other rain stick-like washy sounds. Royo moves it with gentle chords into a bass solo from Fortea. He builds tension with rising lines, sliding pitches, tense harmonies, and rapid articulation on tight high notes. It's like he's trying to reach the sky, but then slips away down into some cool bends and percussive bass ideas. It gets chugging again with bass and rhythmic chords from Royo, and they get back into the rhythmic pattern from the start and the different sections. And they finish it with a softer section with hi-hat, ringing bass, and light dancing high register lines from Royo. Track 8, Oborenes. Royo starts it out with a flowing triplet figure in the right hand over a rising interval idea in the bass. Drums and bass join in for a few cycles. Royo adds new higher right hand, sort of runs on the top. I said Guaraldi-esque. I don't know if that's a word, but it reminded me of a Vince Guaraldi kind of figure. The original triplet idea returns softer with some harmonic movement and bass harmonics that perk up underneath, into a bass solo from Fortia over sustained piano backing from Royo and delicate drums from Del Val. Fortia makes another ringing and reaching solo with cool rhythmic ideas along the way. It's very intense. He then lays down a deep bass groove, and Del Val gets a snappy drum groove to match it for a solo from Royo. He plays some chiming and running figures in the upper register before coming down in the middle for some more rhythmic descending ideas, and then percussive ideas and some more of those zippy runs. They give some space with piano chords and bass ringing out for Del Val to do some drum work before returning with the triplet motif from the beginning and end with some soft piano and cosmic bass bowing sounds. And we're going to end up the recording with Himno de Miranda, a hymn for Miranda, a solo piano piece by Royo. It's rubato, but has some dazzling runs and moments of exuberance, as well as a real sense of playfulness, hinting at different styles of classical, blues, and gospel in little excursions, all wrapped up with a lovely ending. So I thought this is a really fun and energetic recording. It's a debut, all original music, a lot of interesting rhythmic things going on, interesting compositions from the opening Pangea, and a cool Bangkok with Orientalism and blues mixed into it. Some slower, more tender moments with Riancorrentro. Great piano playing, intense, and also a nice light touch in places from Royo. Fortia's bass is prominent and unique in sound and phrasing, and Del Val matches the mood from whispery to full assault mode. And so I thought this is another exciting and fabulous piano trio debut recording.
Yeah, I think you liked this a lot more than I did, although I did like it a lot, I want to say. But you talked it up so much through the week. I was like, gung-ho to hear it. And I was like, it's good, but I don't know. I was really impressed by the ideas on it. It just seems to have like a lot of ideas like in each track. It was lively and energetic. We get a piano trio, and then we get sounds created by a piano trio. But then they go way beyond the sound we expect when we think of piano trio, right? You hear bowed bass effects, you hear African and Latin percussion effects, straight drums, lush classical type piano lines, and intermingled with the jazzier ones. You get swing, you get something that's more kind of angular and kind of bouncy. It's an album with a lot of variety, I thought, and it crosses genres several times within single tracks, and I really did enjoy that. I think it's something that's going to repay repeated listenings, because I think there's a lot going on. I was kind of a little bit overwhelmed by just what I was hearing. It wasn't what I expected, in other words. So I think part of it I was reading into like, oh, Russ likes it, so it's going to be this, but it's not, so it's, I think I got to just sort of rehear it and kind of get more of the, get more absorbed in sort of the unexpected elements in it. There's a lot of unexpected sounds on this album. I think I should give it a listen and check that out. Just be ready for anything.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to unpack here, but overall, it's just got this great bursting energy to it, which I thought
there's good
impressed
energy.
Me a lot. Yeah, so
never knew what you were going to hear next. Really, it was kind of that was kind of cool on a jazz album,
Yeah, well, usually when you get kind of a debut like this, you're going to have a lot of standards or their favorite tunes, and this just sort of really slams you with all this original, like really complex stuff, and it's well played. And what I like about this, the same thing that initially struck me when we heard Spiral Trio last year, is the real active and equal importance of the bass as a lead instrument, not just a support for the piano. So Fortia here is very aggressive, interesting, and has a lot of palette of unique things that he can do. So.
Yeah, and I think that the highlighting of the bass is going to be like a common theme with all three of these jazz albums this week. The bass really is prominent in all three of these.
And so the next recording is also a piano